the IndieCast podcast. On this show, we interview indie hackers from around the world building amazing products and websites that to share their stories and insight on how they built their indie business. Today, I'm talking to Chris and Blake from Copy, and I'm so excited to start talking to them. So, hey, Chris and Blake, thank you for joining me today.
Excited to be here.
Do you want to introduce yourselves, both
For
of
having
you?
Go ahead, Chris.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Chris. I'm one of the co-founders of Copy.ai. My co-founder is Paul Yakubian. You've probably seen him around on Twitter. I'm the other guy, and I'm really glad to be here
All
today.
right, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm Blake, and I'm also on Twitter way too much. and I'm the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer at Copy. So I work a lot with Chris.
Actually, nice. Yeah, CopyAi has been growing a lot recently, and I'm super excited to finally meet you both on the show. And it's my pleasure to host you. So thank you so much. And I guess we can get started. So, can you, to people who haven't heard of CopyAi, can you tell me more about the product and what its mission is?
Yeah, I can handle that. So Copy.ai is an AI-powered writing assistant for your business. Paul and I were inspired by all the entrepreneurs we've met over the last few years. And one question that kept nagging us is why aren't there more entrepreneurs? And so we kept trying to find ideas to lower the barriers of entrepreneurship. And one thing we discovered in the process of building a lot of our own products and projects was there's a lot of writing that has to go on. And if you're writing on your landing page or your social media posts, don't really compel a user. You're not going to get any early users, and it's really really hard to start a business without any customers or users. And so when GPT-3 came out, we realized this is an opportunity. Like this writing makes everyone a pretty solid writer. And that opens up the doors of entrepreneurship in ways that just wasn't possible before. And as a result, we started Copy.ai, and the rest is history.
I guess that's a nice phrase. The rest is history. Because it makes sense. Because writing is a huge part of building anything. Copywriting, ad copy, all of this is really annoying sometimes. Like it's really for people to get started, and I think that's the number one issue that a lot of people have when trying to make something. So kudos for building this. My next one is actually for Blake. I'm gonna jump a bit. But this is gonna be a bit confusing question because we just started interview, but I'll go back to the question later to Chris. Sorry. Uh, so it's been a few weeks since you started at CopyAI. How are you feeling? Because when you started, you were a bit nervous and you were surprised. So I'd love to know, Blake, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, it's been okay. No, it's been awesome. I have never been able to work at a company where I actually use the tool before. And it's really cool. It's really cool because every day I can use the tool that I'm supposed to be marketing to help me do marketing. That's a pretty cool thing to have.
Yeah.
The people that I'm working with are fantastic. Everything's been so fun and fast paced and a lot of autonomy, a lot of just independence and building things that didn't exist before. And I'm having a blast doing it. I'd be lying if I didn't say that sometimes I'm a little bit nervous because I've never been a CMO before. And it's hard to just start from scratch and build something that didn't exist before. So it's not like it's all fun and games and it's always super easy. Of course, it's not easy, but it is very fun and it's been a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting seeing how when you first started you were a bit nervous and how you really helped Copy AI. So I want to know what is your day-to-day work as marketing for Copy AI? Like sorry, yeah, basically that.
Yeah, it changes a lot. Every single day is completely different. There is no formula yet for me, and that's okay because right now, like I said, we're trying to build everything from scratch, from things that didn't exist before, and try to make them real. So whether that's working on videos that need to be made, or working on PR, or working on going on podcasts like this to promote the company, there's all kinds of stuff that we do. But ultimately, I would say 90% of my day is writing, and I'm sure Chris feels very similarly. Or no matter what role you are, but especially in marketing, I'm writing memos, I'm writing documentation for processes, I'm writing content itself, I'm writing emails, I'm writing Slack messages. It's all writing. And so the fact that we have a tool that's built in to help us do that is really cool. Like I mentioned, just going back to that point, because we do write a lot.
My mic was muted. I kept talking. I didn't even notice. Sorry for that. That's really interesting because think about it. Copy AI is just really simple. I'm just gonna. I can't see my screen in Zencaster, but I would. So, but anyways, with that being said, though, it's really interesting how your day-to-day work is just writing, and then copy just helps you make all of that. Um, what do you think is the most difficult part of marketing copy a product like GPT-3?
Education. Yeah, and Chris can talk maybe a little bit more about this too, but the education doesn't exist out there yet. We have to make it. We have to teach people that AI is not scary, but that it's helpful, because sometimes that might not be the first thing that people think. So for me, it's the education side, but Chris probably can dive a little bit deeper even.
Yeah. So, Chris, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, definitely. Blake nailed it. And he nailed it so quickly. You can tell that it's very top of mind. Basically, the narratives around AI have been this scary, oh, it's going to take your job sort of thing. And the way we're approaching it is no, it's not going to take your job. It's actually going to allow you to quit and start your own company. And we think that that's a much more compelling story and a much more compelling reason for people to really embrace AI and use it for themselves and derive value from it. So in some ways, it's actually a massive democratizing force, and we want to make sure that AI is a democratizing force, so then the wealth inequality in the world does not get even further exacerbated. So it's all about education, about showing people, hey, this is a new technology. New technologies are tools that you can really help you out in your day-to-day life and make your lives better.
Yeah, so I think that's the main number one reason that people have AI. It's scary. It's gonna take your work. It's gonna. So this actually made me the question that one of my community members asked. Well, one of my friends asked to ask me about is that do you think CopyAI will replace writers one day? Like not now, maybe in the
No,
future, or do you think AI will ever take
no, I don't.
like any AI product out there?
It will replace writers for specific verticals, I would say. So there are places where people might not even enjoy writing as much. So let's say documentation, right? If you write code, it's the writing there is pretty standardized. It's pretty formulaic. You really want to be clear, concise, explain what this code is doing. That could potentially be automated, and if it gets automated, it'd probably make a lot of engineers very happy because that's a huge time suck, and it's really really tough for them to do that. For other types of creative writing, writing is in a way a form of thinking. It's a form of expressing your own thoughts, and that's a very humanistic thing. So we don't think that AI is going to replace that. What it could do though is it could help augment it. It could help you think through what you're trying to express. It could help you write better, and it could help you break through writer's block, which is one of the worst things for creativity, where it just makes you unable to even be creative. So we don't think it'll replace humans, but it will augment it. Ultimately, all these new technologies should be very human focused because we are the ones who are making it, and it's what should be valuable to humans.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like Blake, if you want to comment on that, if you comment on that, I think you're going to say something.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I totally agree. I don't foresee it taking over human beings. It's just there to help us. We're building this technology so that we can be more creative, not so we can replace ourselves. And so, sure, if there are certain functions that people don't like doing and that we can do better, then maybe that ends up getting replaced over time. But by and large, human beings are still going to be writing in 10 years. To answer your question, like that's going to be a big thing that we do for the rest of time, because since the beginning of time, human beings have been writing stuff in some way. That's not going away anytime soon. If it was, it probably would have happened already. Writing is just too important to humanity. So I don't believe that that's something that's going to be replaced. But like Chris is mentioning, there are tools out there to just help you with like one specific thing that you really need help with, that'll boost your creativity a little bit or get you from 0 to 1. But it's not meant to take you from 0 to a billion. That's just not the purpose.
So the purpose, to sum this all up, the purpose is to help writers or anyone just make better and excel themselves without worrying about writer's block or creativity problems or like having trouble creating something for a business. Is that the whole idea about CopyAI is about? Like to help other people without replacing the main need of people. It's not people itself, but like writer's block itself.
Yeah, it is a huge, huge part of that. Um, and the way we see it is it gives people superpowers. So if you're already a really good writer, you will be able to use the tool in a way that's much more advanced and sophisticated than other people. But if you're a really bad writer, this tool will get you to be a pretty, solid writer, or at least get you in a much better position. Um, I myself am one of the worst writers I know, and I think the entire team can testify to that. But by using the tool, I find myself learning a bit more about writing, learning about what is a compelling narrative, because the AI is really good at creating those. And so the more you read, the more you interact, the more you actually use this to write, the better your normal writing gets. And that's something that we haven't seen we're seeing the early effects of now. And I use the tool a lot, so I can notice it really early on. But I think in a year or two, we're going to start seeing a lot of our users saying, "Wow, we think we became better writers by using the tool."
I can already see that copy has helped me a lot. I think it's just a simple. It's really simple. Like you make an account. The pricing is simple. You let's say I want to generate let's say I want to generate a landing page hero text. All I have to put is my brand name and what my company is about, and it just outputs what I need. And I think that's really simple about CopyAi. It's just really simple. You can basically get almost anything you need from it without that helps you. And the answer one and the best part of GPT is that it's not definite or like the best. It's gonna help you write better. Like for example, if I generated something about Make a Rocket and I get a response like a new way to help you make your online business better. Obviously that's not gonna. I can just post that and say, okay, this is what Microsoft is. I have to expand on that. So I think that was really helpful about Copy that you get something you want and then it helps you expand and make something better on what you want. So that's really interesting. So I think that answered the question about will AI take people work. So anyways, though, what is the process of managing copy day to day? Like, what's the day to day work? What are all the people working on every day? And what's the process of maintaining a product like that?
Blake, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I am not the one that came up with the product, and I am not the one that manages the whole company, thankfully. But from my standpoint, as as an executive early on in the company, the first thing is finding the right people, and so we've got some of those people already in place. But that's where a lot of the energy goes, if we're being honest. Like finding the right people that can then build something else out. Again, I mentioned before things that didn't exist but that need to. That's the first step. And so day to day, I would say anybody at the company is really just looking actively for talented people that can help build something special. Beyond that, there's a lot of boring stuff like writing that Copy AI can help with, but that's really what it is. Managing a company, a lot of it is writing things down so that down the road you haven't forgotten that or you don't lose it. That you have clear processes in place. So when you're starting small with a company, I was employee number one, but employee number three, but like hire number one. And so I came in with not a ton of context. And in the past month since I've been here, we built out a lot of processes and a lot of systems, and we're going to keep doing that. And that is a very important part of managing a company day to day. It's just writing stuff down, making sure people have answers to their questions, give them a safe space where they know the structure that we're working within and what we're working toward, and then empowering them to go off and do that thing. So that for me, that's kind of what it's like day to day. But I don't do it for the whole company, but Chris and Paul do. So he probably have something even more
So,
interesting to say.
okay, so that's perfect. So, Chris, I want to hear your response. I want to know because I think you'll be better to answer this question then. So, yeah, can you tell me? So, I want to know.
Yeah, what Blake said is pretty much the same thing as what I do too, but just for other verticals and whatever needs help. But I will say, the job of a founder changes basically like every other month. So, before we hired Blake, my job was very, very different. It was working on product, talking to customers, really making sure that, the product works, that there's nothing broken, that we can continue to launch new features. And then, but there's so much work to be done. I just couldn't handle it myself, and Paul couldn't handle it as well. So then we brought on Blake, who really just took an entire large piece of the company and ran with it, and absolutely is crushing it. So he, basically hiring around an entire organization around marketing, and that is unbelievably valuable. And so he's, taken a lot off of our plate. And then now it's my job to search for engineers. And so over the last few weeks, we've hired a bunch of engineers, and they're getting up to speed. And, now they're starting to ship products. And that's really, really amazing as well. And I do expect the job to change even more in the future. Once we have enough engineers, now it's like, oh well, what do we need next? How do we do this? How does the company continue to grow? And then when you hire people, there's a lot of other things that we need to set up. So when we hired Blake, we had no onboarding processes at all. And his feedback was, hey, it was very hectic. I did not know what I was doing, and it wasn't very clear. So over the last few weeks, Blake worked with us to create an onboarding process where now we had 2 new hires yesterday, and it went a lot smoother. And then, for us, the next step is, okay, now that the onboarding is off, well, we're going to constantly figure out new things that, could really make the company culture stronger, and make sure that everyone can perform at a high level. And it's a lot of management work now that's very, very different than the work I was doing a month ago. And so does that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, you'd answer more, which actually I was gonna ask another question, was that what is the onboarding process like for all your new hires? Because it's really interesting because you're hiring a lot of people recently, and it's really amazing how you're picking a lot of people and we're all will work on projects. So you already answered that question. So I'll move on to the next question. This is for Blake. Uh, so it's almost April 5th, and I think on April 5th you're launching Twitter MBA. So can you tell me more about what that's about, Blake?
Yeah, it's actually April 14th, but
I'm
close enough.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My
No,
bad.
you're good. I pro-
Ca- ca-
Uh, Blake, it
I don't
looks like
hear you, Blake.
Oh shoot, I got muted. Yeah, so April 14th it'll come out, and basically what it's going to do is give a free resource for anybody that actually is serious about going onto Twitter and building an online presence, which basically helps you build a business. And we could talk about that a little bit more, but it's giving you all the tools to do that. So there are a lot of other courses out there. There are even some free ones, not as many, but this is going to be totally free and probably a lot more detailed than anybody even wants it to be. I've crowdsourced a lot of content too from people that are willing to help out, and there have been some people that have contributed pieces to the Twitter MBA. It's going to be a nice big course that you can take at your own leisure and learn anything that you want to learn about Twitter at a base level. But ultimately, what it's not going to do is make you actually good at Twitter, because you have to put action into it to become good at it. So it'll get you up to the point where you can take action and start testing things for yourself. But it should be a very good jumpstart. And then there's going to be some community features to it as well for people that are even more serious. Maybe a paid community that we can chat a little bit more deeply, and of course the Twitter MBA will be sponsored by CopyAI. No affiliation whatsoever. I just decided I just like that tool a lot,
Yeah,
so I wanted to slap it on there.
yeah, sure. That sounds perfectly normal. So, Twitter MBA by Copy.ai, a Blake Emal product. That'll be funny. Anyways,
Yep.
so you build. So for Blake, still, I have a lot of questions about this. You built a really nice presence on Twitter. Can you tell me more about the process of building that a little bit, and maybe like give a sneak about, yeah, yeah, what I just said. Ignore the last sentence. I'm sorry.
So are you talking about building the Twitter MBA or building like growing CopyAI?
Uh, Growing Copy on Twitter.
Chris, run with it.
Oh man, Paul's the guy that you got to talk to for this. I haven't really been growing my account as much, but I could share some beliefs. we are very much in the belief of building in public. And specifically, what that means is to be ourselves, have fun, be transparent, and give back to the community. Um, what Paul and I have realized over the last few, years is a lot of startups, they try to keep everything really close to their heart. They try to keep a lot of secrets from the rest of the world. Everyone's in stealth mode. And there is a certain aspect to that where it's like, oh, it is right. But what we think is it's already hard enough to start a company. And if we're going to try to inspire other people to start companies, we need to be fully transparent about what it's like, what problems we're running into, what things we need to learn, and how our job changes over time. And so that's where our tweet storms come from. Blake is CMOing in public. I don't think anyone else has ever CMO'd in public before, and I'm excited down the line if we start seeing public figures CMOing, CTOing in public. That would be a dream come true. And so we're trying to start a movement, and the movement is to be completely transparent and democratize the knowledge necessary to start a company, to run a company, to do these jobs, so people can really understand how do you become the best CMO ever? How do you become a founder? How do you really sell stuff? How do you get things going? Another piece of this vision, though, is giving back. So all of our threads, we try to make it as public as possible. So when people DM Paul or me, we sometimes tell them, hey, you should tweet it at us, and then we will answer it there in public so that everyone else can see it as well. That's really, really important to us. And then the final component is also supporting others in the community. So other people like yourself who are, taking action. It's very, very important that, the early stages, they have some support. It's a lonely road being a founder, and, doing anything new. It is tough. And so if we have a platform and we're lucky enough to have a platform, we want to use it to really help amplify the voices of other people who are starting off and learning and getting on their own journey.
Sorry, yeah, that's really nice. I don't think I've ever seen anyone build in public the way CopyAi does. So that's really a starter to both of you and Paul. I wish it'd be nice to have him be, but it's okay. Anyways, being on the topic about going on Twitter, I just wasn't for both of you. It's a bit off topic, but I want to get into this before, just give a personal touch to both of you before we move on to more business savvy questions or such. What type of music do you both love? It's just a simple question. Anyone go for it. It doesn't matter. Just what type of music do you both love?
Chris really likes country music. He only listens to country music all day, every day. I don't know what you.
What do you listen to?
I just listen to like the hits, but I'm kind of boring in that way. I'm open minded to anything. Like I will listen to 70s, 60s stuff. I'll listen to rap. I'll listen to whatever. But honestly, if you want to know the truth, I am incapable of doing work and listening to music with lyrics at the same time. So if I'm listening to anything during work, it's always like binaural beats on Spotify or something really boring and low key. If I'm listening in the car, then it's probably something like the Mamma Mia soundtrack or like rock and roll, or just like you can imagine anything weird that I'm very much a sing in the car person. So that's where I get that all out, but I can't do it while I work.
Yeah, I'm not the opposite. I cannot work without music. It feels really boring and it's just quiet and it just feels like I'm in like a no middle of nowhere. So I just want to ask the question because I just want to get a bit personal before I move on because I want to move to a little bit more confusing questions. So recently, I think the last week, you got a $2.9 million seed fund from I could be my numbers could be wrong. I'm sorry for that. Can you tell me more about that and how it's gonna help CopyAI?
Yeah, I can answer that one. By the way, I also country music's not bad, but I do switch around a lot. Now everyone's gonna think I'm listening to country music due to Blake. That's great. Yeah, about the seed funding. So it was led by Craft Ventures, and the team there have been inspirations for Paul and I. As a matter of fact, Paul went to the same high school as one of the main founding partners there, David Sachs, in Memphis, Tennessee. But for us, we really have very ambitious visions of how we want to bring Copy AI to the masses. Really, share it with the world. Really showcase, that this technology is going to be really valuable and help people globally. In order to do that, you need to hire a team. In order to hire a team, we have to be able to pay people. So the $2.9 million is used to help us staff up and really get people like Blake, who's top tier talent, to help us work on this mission. Ultimately, a lot of a company is two things: not raising money, hiring good people, and not running out of money. And so, in our case, we needed to hire some really good people, and that costed us money. And so we had to go out and raise it.
Yeah, I think you've hired 11 people so far. How much, where's the count right now? And any of you can answer, it doesn't really matter for this question. So,
We're at 7.5.
seven
We've
and a
got like
half. Okay.
seven here, and then
Yeah.
one joining, right? And then, well, no, then we've got one other person engineering side, I think, that I might not be counting.
Okay,
So
I'm just double checking because I'm just making sure. Yeah, so that's interesting because it's really nice about that, and so it's really interesting. Like 2.5 million is a lot. It's really interesting to see that. In one way, it's a lot, and one way it's another. But it's about the point that I think it's gonna help you both a lot, and really interesting to see how the future ties with the craft ventures and everything. So we're almost near for the last sort of some questions. So I want to ask about, what do you feel about the creator economy? Because CopyAI is mostly built on creator economy, that creators and people will have CopyAI to help them generate what they need. And what do you feel on that industry or that economy?
I can start out if you want, Chris, or
Yes,
yeah.
please.
So for me, I think it's the only way to have a truly meaningful career today. If you have some kind of creation or side project of your own, but at the same time, I believe that you don't have to just be a founder or an entrepreneur to actually be an entrepreneur. I think you can work for a company and still be an entrepreneur in that role, and still be a creator in that role, and create something on the side. But I think that the skill set that you, or at least the benefit that you gain from having some kind of creation that you're working on is more important than college. I'll just put it straight up, like that is going to matter more than college will. Not that college is meaningless in every use case, that's not true, but you'll learn more by doing than you will by being lectured in most cases. If you create something, you're going to have a better career most likely than you would have if you had not. And so, like, any opportunities that I've had in my career, any opportunities I've had monetarily, it's because I've proactively built things that I thought were cool, plain and simple. So that's really where I stand on it. I think everybody should have a side hustle. I think companies should be totally happy with their employees having side hustles. In fact, they should encourage it, because that is what makes us all better. And I think that we should talk a lot more about it in places like Twitter and everything, where we can encourage more people to create. Plain and simple. I think it's one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like the creator economy is part of Maker, in a way, because it just helps both Maker Rocket and some other indie creators build. And it's not only about indie or like big making company. It's about making content, being not famous but interesting, influential. I think the creator economy has a future, and I think CopyAI is also a great part of that. Chris, do you want to comment on what Blake said?
He nailed it, and Blake's living it. He absolutely, and that's actually one of the reasons why we hired him, is because he really is living in the future. We do believe the future looks a lot more like everyone's a creator, and the tooling to become a creator will continue to drop. Already, it's getting pretty low. Like, we're doing this podcast, on a web app. So you can run a podcast these days with basically no cost. There is so much more that is coming that excites us a lot, and Copy AI is only one little piece of it, right? Sometimes starting to create, you do need to write a lot, landing page, media posts. You need to even brainstorm what to create. But the future is all about that, and we're very, very big on the so-called passion economy and the creator economy, and that is actually one of the things we're most excited about over the next decade.
I'm just having a bit of a headache. Sorry for a second. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I think the creator economy is going really well, and I feel like, as you said, we're hosting a podcast on the web. Like, if you ask someone 10 years ago that can I host a podcast on the web, it was impossible. Like back then, you might need to actually go in person, buy some recording equipment, have people meet people in person, or maybe you have to pay for a really expensive web version. But today, everything is all online, and that's about that. I think that made it possible. So many people just go indie, go creative, go on the creator economy because there's no risk. There is a risk, but there's not really. You're not paying for most thing. You can get started with software like Copy.ai. You can get started with software like Bubble. You can get started with software like MakerLog, Whip, but all these communities that are out there free of charge. Well, some free, from not depends, but otherwise, that's what makes the economy so golden in this day and age. Is that especially in COVID. So that's really interesting. So I have a few more questions before we go. So the next few questions is all about for Blake and mostly Chris. So Blake, I want to ask you more about what you worked on in the past and before CopyAI, and how has that helped you. So it's not
Yeah,
related to
so
CopyAI. I'm sorry, one sec. I'm so sorry. It's not related to CopyAI. Just about both of you, your past and future projects, and what do you want to accomplish in the future.
I've had a lot of different jobs, and I've always had a job with side hustles there as well. So I've never really gone all in on one side hustle and done that the full time because I have 1,000 kids, so I'm not allowed to do that. My wife would kill me. I always have to have a job. But it's the stuff that I've actually built. I got my start really creating by doing more service based things. I've never had a physical product that I've sold. I've never been able to do that yet. And that maybe that's something exciting I could do down the road. But it's always been service based because my knowledge has been in marketing. And the way that I've sold that is just by selling my knowledge, not necessarily a physical product or anything like that. So it started out really as selling website audits. I would take in your website URL and I would record a video and tell you all the things that would help it get better, more conversions, be better designed, have better copy, do all that stuff. And I started selling those. And to date, I've probably done 400 or 500 of those that I've sold. And that's what I've done most of the time until recently within the past year within Twitter. I started just getting a lot of ideas and acting on them. And most of them totally flopped, like related to that idea of website audits. I actually came up with a dashboard that I could create for people that would tell them how well their UX is performing on their site, and nobody wanted that, and that was okay. I thought that it
I
was going to
want
be really
that.
cool.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, well, I thought that there were going to be a lot of people that wanted that, but it turns out like nobody bought it, and so the market told me what they were interested in and what they weren't, and that was cool. And that's a big part of it too, is just knowing when you make something that flops, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a failure or that you should stop trying or that you're not on the right path. It's just like one indicator that maybe that exact thing didn't work, and you can learn from there and get better and better and better. And so those are the kind of things that I built, more information products than anything. But I really like I've been building an audience more than anything, more than even those products, and that's been super valuable to me.
Oh, wait, sorry. I accidentally. Okay, I'm so sorry. I thought I muted the mic for a second. Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like I've done the same. Even though I'm really young, I had a lot of ideas, and small ideas, and I wasted a stupid amount of time on them that really got nowhere. My first thing I ever made was this Chrome assistant called Simplified, and basically it was a glorified mini version of a manager for links, and that was the most. If I have a link, I'll share you later. But it was these icons on a screen, and you click on them, and it was horrible. And I spent 6 months making that. I don't know why. And in 6 months, it was the exact same as it started. So that's part. But yeah, I think it's yeah, and that's really interesting about how your the audit part is really interesting. I saw it on Gunmart a couple days back, and that's why I asked this question because I want to know more about it. So this next question for Chris. I've seen your LinkedIn. You've invested in a lot of companies that are indie businesses, from Circle to Magic Link. So can you tell me more about that,
Yeah, actually,
Chris? I think you're muted.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so actually, Circle and those companies are actually more venture backed, and even we are now venture backed. We can no longer claim the title of being an indie company anymore. But yeah, I can give a little bit of background. Those companies, and the reason why they choose to take on venture funding is usually because they have a vision that's a lot larger. Magic believes in the death of passwords, and Circle believes that communities are going to be the future, and I think they're very, very right about that. When we make investments, we try to invest in companies where we get excited about the future. We really enjoy like what this vision is, and we want to see it become reality. And for Copy, the reason why we decided to quit our last jobs and go on this full time is because it was so compelling of a mission. If we are able to increase the number of entrepreneurs in the world, it's worth our time. It's worth our energy, time, effort, and just throwing everything at it, even though it tends to be a pretty risky road. Yeah, investing is tough, but it's really, really rewarding if you're able to actually change the world for the better.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's really interesting how you, yeah. And I want to think that the answer is really nice. I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't think of like a really nice response to the answer. So I'm just gonna leave that as. So we're almost at the end. And before I wanted to go, I wanted to ask you about what have you learned and what have you failed while building CopyAi? It's for both of you. Like, what are the part that you thought was nice, or not nice, but really nice? And yeah, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So what I've learned is a lot. I've learned a lot about process building. I've learned a lot about hiring already. It's something I've done before, but it's just a totally different world. I've never worked at a startup before. So I am learning on the fly how startups work, how to work in a startup to be effective, and how to be efficient, even though you have a million ideas, trying to find the one or two that you can focus on right now and putting the rest in a backlog. That's a very underrated skill that I am constantly trying to refine. And then, failures. I mean, geez Louise, Chris, I'm sure I've already failed like 1,000 times at stuff, but that's the name of the game. And if you're not human, that's the whole point of building in public, is trying to not pretend that you're just perfect and that everything is always great. It's not. There are times where we focus on the wrong thing. Maybe there are times where I send out an email with the wrong email address. There are times where that our copy in an advertisement or announcement just isn't quite where it needs to be, or maybe we delay something that shouldn't have been. There are mistakes that happen all the time, and they happen every day. But I think it's more important not focusing on not making mistakes, but more so on building in public in such a way that you're comfortable making mistakes, so that you can actually learn from them and not repeat them and get feedback from other people. That's a part of this equation that's missing from all these other companies that aren't building in public. It's, you get feedback from other people in real time. It's very, very valuable.
Yeah. Thank you, Blake, for the answer. It's an answer about the troubles and mistakes that we make on a daily basis. So thank you. So Chris, I would love to hear your response on this exact same topic.
Yeah, Blake's completely right, and we don't call them failures as much. I think of them as learnings. Yeah, and sometimes, the you just constantly have to learn. One thing that I just never anticipated, I've heard about it, but I never really understood it until we lived it, is that starting a company, there's going to always be problems, and the problems just get bigger and bigger. And when you solve one, another one comes right up. And when you solve another one comes right up. And so my job these days tend to be actually solving just problem after problem. And if you do it for a long enough time, you find out you do make some progress. The other learning um, has been that there's only a few decisions that really, really make a big difference sometimes. And that's what Blake was saying. It's like the decision on what to work on. Will it actually matter? That's a very, very big decision. And if you choose that properly, it could make a huge difference in the company's trajectory. And this is actually true for personal life as well. If you choose the right things to work on, the things that you feel so compelled to do, that even if it doesn't work out, you'll still do, those tend to teach you lessons in life that will go with you across jobs and will open up opportunities and doors that you would have never expected. So yeah, it's these jobs are all about learning, and being a human in many ways is a life of learning.
Yeah, I think it's all about when you're indie hacking, you're building anything. It's about the learning, not the fillers. If you fail, no matter how many times, you'll always go back because next time, let's say you build an indie business and you failed. Well, you make another indie business, and so now you know what you made a mistake on. Then you let's say you failed again. The point is that you keep on learning from your mistakes, and then eventually you won't fail as often, and you won't think that you're failing. Oh, so my failings are failures. They're learning, and they're learning point to help you make it better. So I want to ask you this. I keep on, but this is, and we actually are in the last row of questions. So what is your favorite GP3 app that you've both seen? I'll let both of you answer this separately. That other than OpenAI, that's not a copyright website. That is really nice. Like any GP3 website that on built on GPT-3 that you'll really enjoy.
I'll go first. There's one called AI Dungeon. We're good friends with the CEO there. I thought that that was one of the most creative ways of applying it. And for the people who don't know what it is, it's a text-based choose your own adventure game. So effectively, you can start off as a wizard, and then the dragon appears, and you can type out, what you do. So it's like I fly into the sky and I slay the dragon, and then it uses AI to actually generate the next scene. It's very clever. It's amazing. Lots of fun. I highly suggest checking it out.
Yeah, for me, I don't know very many of them yet, so Copy AI is my answer.
Really, I used her. Okay, that's a wonderful answer. Okay, it's a wonderful answer. This is for Chris because I know you answer this question more. So I'm just gonna mute your mic, Blake. Yeah, I did. Never mind. Chris. Is there any? What was the? I forgot to ask earlier though. What was the process of building copy? Like the coding, the developing, the maintaining, learning how to actually get get started with GPT-3. What was the whole process of that?
And I did it on the weekends. I was much more of an indie builder back then, so I kind of just hacked it together. All I cared about was getting it to work. And so, I used a lot of no-code tools to really help speed up that process, and tried to build it as well as possible. It was just, it was a side project at the time, and it was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed it. It's been a while since I coded before I built it, so I'm like, this is nice, getting to really put my coding hat back on and build something that people would actually use. It's actually one of the first apps that a lot of people ended up using. When I saw there was like 10 visitors on the site using it, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty meaningful because none of my other projects have ever gotten to that level. So it was quite an experience.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part about that, the learning from the experience, building the business, and it's side project. That's how most of the most famous indie websites and blogs and creative content all emerge from. So I want to ask this question: is that how many monthly visitors do you have for Copy AI? I want a general question about how many people are paying for it per month. If you can talk about it, because I'm reading about your monthly revenue, and it's super surprising about how well you're actually making. So I would love to know more about that if possible from any of you.
Let me find out. Um, Give me 1 second. It's going to take a little bit of time.
No worries, take your time. And I mean,
So
we'll just have a moment of silence in the meantime, I guess.
man. So, are you saying visitors to the website or visitors to our?
The actual editor that like generates everything.
Yeah, okay. So we
Like the
had
actual.
about 25,000. We had 25,000 signups in March so far, and
Whoa,
March
that
isn't
is
quite over yet. So
yeah, that's
yeah,
really
we'll probably
surprising
end
actually.
around a little bit.
Chris, I think you glitched
Yeah,
out
it's
when you
uh, it's
when you
been
said
pretty.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it,
it's
it's
been
been
super
pretty
amazing.
insane.
I think I'll read 99K before I end of this year. So that's good, nice for you. But man, this is the end of the all I have for today because I'm almost out of questions and I'm super nervous. I'm just gonna end it there. If any of your closing remarks, question for me, questions for we can talk about after the show is over. And I hope everyone listening had a wonderful time. If you have any questions, you can always check out our giveaway tweet on my Twitter profile, or you could contact or DM Blake or Chris anytime on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure they'll answer your question or even mention them. So thank you for listening and have a wonderful day. Bye. Do you want to say anything before we end the recording, Chris or Blake?
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Check out Copy.ai. You can't go wrong. It'll help you write better. So that's my plug.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and kudos. Bye.